I
Mhm.
always loved showing up last minute. That was my thing to help deal with my nerves was if I could show up when the 30-second board was going up, that's when I would show up because I didn't have time to sit on the gate to let those thoughts sink in. If you're physically able to get back up, no matter how scared you are, how shook up you are, if you're able to, do it. Myself, I was like, okay, let's get a top 10 for the West Coast and let's get a top 10 for the East Coast. And you can purely say, like, you're top 10 women's pro all of Canada. Um, and I did that.
First of all, welcome to the first episode of 2025 for the Grit Rail series. It's exciting, and our first ever Instagram Live version of this series, which is cool. I started the Grit Rail series because coming to the races as a motocross mom, I began to see like, wow, this is a lot of work. Like, there's a lot of people that make these race weekends happen. There's so much behind the scenes that you really don't know until you're kind of in it. And even like there's so many levels and layers to it. So I thought it'd be really cool to do a series where we interview people from different aspects of the motocross world and just get to hear their stories of like why they're in this sport and what's kept them in it. And yeah, why they're not running for the hills, you know, after, because some race weekends are a little bit crazy. For everybody involved, both the racers and those who are there to support the racers and everything. So today my guest is Brook Greenlaw. So Brook is a 25-year-old, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Point
25-year-old.
25.
Yeah. Former top 10 women's pro motocross racer, also an MX trainer, also a horse lover, also an advocate for girls and women who love motocross and want to learn to race and ride. A lot of people will know Brooke from Burnt River track, which happens to be your home.
Mhm.
But today, the point of this is to really dig into your personal story, your own lived experience of the grittiness of this sport and what what its impact has been on you as a racer and also as a woman, and also just kind of the season that you're stepping into now. So let's start with the early days. Give us a glimpse of your first taste of motocross. What's your earliest memory of it?
My earliest memory would be I don't have a whole lot of memories because I started when I was like 2, 3 years old. But one very fond short memory that I do remember is riding our small track here at Burnt River on my TW50 that I had taken over from my brother because he had outgrown it. And my dad was like running around behind me, making sure I didn't do anything dumb, I guess. But yeah, I remember that. And I have another small memory of I think almost every child has been here at one point in time. I was riding someone's dirt bike and I drove it into the back of a pickup truck. I think that happens more than people say it happens, but I was one of those kids where I lost control and I drove into the back of someone's pickup. But that's about it for like when I first started because I was so young. I don't actually
Mm-hmm.
remember a whole lot from like the early days.
For sure. What was your first bike? You said was a PW50.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that must seem like tiny now
Oh
in
my God,
comparison.
they're so small. And like once in a while, like I'll hop on one and they still kind of like, I get a little bit mind blown. They actually go pretty quick, those little bikes. Like, and you can see like some little like 3, 4 year olds and like they'll be like shredding around the track and like those bikes are definitely capable of some speed for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's true. They're made to like they're hefty things. Like they're very dense, so they're made to
Oh
like
yeah, they're
support many falls.
oh yeah.
um, what age did you decide that you wanted to race motocross, like, and not just kind of rip around and ride into pickup trucks and things like that?
I think I think when I was about like 15, 16, when I upgraded into a 125, um, I I knew I had some speed behind me and I was pretty capable. Um, and I believe it was when I was about 15, 16 that I rode my first Triple Crown women's pro race at Gopher Dunes.
Wow.
And from there on, I did it pretty well every single year until last year.
Wow, that's crazy.
Hmm.
That's early for 16. That's crazy. Um, did you start out with a particular trainer when you were, along the way, or did you like what was that like?
I'm, for the most part, pretty self-taught. I have had some training along the way. Years and years ago when I was on like 65s, when Burnt River first offered motocross camps here, we had Liam O'Farrell as our main coach for quite a few years. So I pretty well just like often just rode with the group. Did I listen? Probably not, but I'm sure I learned something from Liam O'Farrell. I was always riding with the camp kids here at Burnt, and he was probably, I would say he's definitely my first trainer, and I most definitely picked up some things from him along the way. When I got onto big bikes, I did my first training facility that I went to was Jimmy Weinhardt's training facility down in North Carolina. Great place, very friendly family atmosphere. And I did some training there with them. And I did a little bit of training with Jack Wright too a few years ago, which was also really good training. Probably should have done more, but I just kind of do my own thing.
Yeah, but isn't that weird? We always look back and we think we probably should have done this or done that, but when you're in it,
Yeah,
you just take it one step at a time, right? Moving forward.
exactly, exactly.
The next question is like kind of in related to that last one, which we had talked about originally, but you know, when your goals kind of shifted to like, oh, okay, I want to make a career out of this
Hmm.
and kind of go full throttle. That sounds like that was when you did the Triple Crown
Yeah.
that early on, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'm gonna say I was pretty, I felt more fearless back then. And I had the track in my backyard. You know, you're a teenager, you're still in school, you don't have these adult life responsibilities, so you can actually really go for it. And I think just because I had riding as my background my whole life and it has always really been a passion of mine. I think I just realistically speaking just wanted to try it and just see what I could do with it, and that's what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, how did you mentally and physically prepare yourself kind of for a race?
Um, I think honestly I most likely probably tried not to think about it. I tend to be a bit of an overthinker. So the more I would think about the race, the more I think about the pressure of the race, being on the gate, the nerves, the sickness to the stomach and everything. So the week leading up to the races, I just realistically just did my thing, did whatever I needed to do for work. Probably tried to cycle a little bit, do a little bit of riding, and then just try and subside like those race feelings and just stay as calm as I could through the week. Eat kind of healthy and just do a little bit of physical activity, work, make some money, whatever it was, and then deal with the feelings when you get to the line. I
Mm-hmm.
always loved showing up last minute. That was my thing to help deal with my nerves was if I could show up when the 30-second board was going up, that's when I would show up because I didn't have time to sit on the gate to let those thoughts sink in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would often get a better start if I could just show up as late as possible.
Yeah, that's probably not a technique that a lot of people utilize, but maybe. I don't
Definitely
know. I mean,
not.
I'm absolutely sure you're not alone in the nerves and just
Oh
what
no.
racers have to go through and the levels of nerves. And Sam Gaynor, when we did our interview last year, he talked about that, like how sometimes even in practices, like if things went sideways or he saw like even watched other racers get hurt or something like that, sometimes it
Yeah,
would really get in his head, and it's such a mental battle to kind of just
exactly.
calm yourself down and focus on the here and now. And so I can see why, if coming late was that was your way of like isolating it,
Yeah,
then and that worked for you. And then
yeah. I
um,
feel like a lot of racers like they want to pick their gate. For me personally, I tend to like a wide gate. Everyone's got their own things. My thing is like, if I have a bad start and I'm like middle of the pack, I'm at more of a risk of getting into a pileup if there's going to be a pileup because unfortunately with motocross, sometimes there's some pileups and you don't want to be part of that.
Mhm.
So I always found like I liked wide gates and I was pretty good at wide gate starts, especially when I was younger. Um, so personally speaking, I didn't really care to have a inside gate. So if I could get a wide gate, that's where I was going. And if I could avoid whatever carnage might happen, that's what I was going to do. I was going to avoid that carnage by picking that wide gate and showing up as late as possible. So those nerves of sitting and staging and like just sitting there is the worst thing for me because I just get thinking and like I just not even so much the thinking part of what's going to happen, more or less of the those nerves are just sitting in your stomach and like that's the part that I don't like is those nerves sitting in there and that's what gets me almost shooken up in myself and reluctant for it. So if I could
Mhm.
just sit at the camper, read a book or watch some TikTok, whatever it was, and then
Mhm.
show up as late as possible, that's what I was going to do because I could distract myself that whole other time and then just show up and there was no time for me to be like, oh my God, my stomach is nodding so hard right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because when I watch my kids race, like I don't really think about that in the staging. In the staging, we're just watching, we're waiting, we're just sitting there, and externally everybody looks calm, but internally there's probably this whole,
Oh yeah.
mind game
I
going
think
on
some
for sure.
people more than others for sure. But yeah, nerves definitely a big thing for me.
What are some of the grittiest obstacles or challenges that you face personally? Like, are there obviously the internal, the nerves,
Mhm.
um, externally? Want to share some of your injury kind of highlights, not lowlights?
I've been honestly extremely fortunate for injury wise in for all the years that I've raced and have ridden bikes. I've only had one really serious injury. I think it was 2017. I landed on a bike and shattered my elbow pretty bad, and did some tendon damage there too. So that one took me right out for the whole season. It was a 3 month recovery. So when getting back on the bike after recovery, I did better than I thought I was. I wasn't actually like so afraid of it. I was definitely afraid of falling on my left side and like re-injuring it, but as time went on, like that feeling surpassed a little bit, but definitely um I did have a really bad crash at Moto Park. I can't remember what year. I think it was like 2021. I crashed into a jump face, and that one definitely shook me up real bad. To the point that I thought I broke my right arm because it was so numb and it was like tingling, and I definitely was dazed because I hit my head a little bit. But I would say to people, because I didn't actually get back on the bike the next day to race or anything, which definitely caused issues for me with confidence wise. I was so reluctant getting back on the bike that it affected the rest of my national season that year. I was just so scared. Like, it shook me up that one. That one really shook me up. And I truly do believe if, even though I was hurting the next day, my arm wasn't broken. I did have it x-rayed. Um, I do believe if I had just got back on the bike the next day and pushed through that, I do think that I wouldn't have been so affected in the long run of things, for sure. So I do suggest, like, for anyone that has a scary crash or, goes down, whatever, you shake yourself up a little bit. If you're physically able to do it, get back on that bike because that realistically is the best thing you can do for the long term of things.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've seen that happen with my kids where they crash and then they get up and yeah, it's like I'm like, how did you
Yeah.
pull that out of yourself
Yeah.
after? Like this thing about this sport, and like, you know, it's called the Grit Real series because we're getting real about the type of grit it takes to be in the sport. And it define in the dictionary it says grit is like muck and dirt, but it's also like courage and strength of character,
100%.
which is like you see in full display on at the motocross track, where you see just people or racers, riders, kids, adults like facing down things that are really hard and then picking themselves back up and getting back on the
Hmm.
bike. So yeah, you're totally right. Because yeah. And I know we've gone to even like training, when we've done training with the boys and like say there's been like a crash or a fall and they're kind of shaken up and they're fine physically, but mentally they're like struggling. And my husband's like,
Yeah,
get back on the bike. Let's end it on a good note. Because if you go
100%.
home and you've ended the training day on like that sour note, then the next time you go, you are like working twice as hard to overcome that feeling.
Exactly. And those thoughts, like, they sometimes linger. And I'm gonna say from that crash at Moto Park, that was the lesson I learned, right? Because that was definitely on the scale of my worst crashes, and out of my scariest crashes was up there as well with breaking my elbow. It was one of the scariest crashes that I had, but I learned my lesson from that. I learned that, it if you're physically able to get back up, no matter how scared you are, how shook up you are, if you're able to, do it. And I took that into with me from last race season. I had two bad crashes in nationals. One of them was pretty scary out west. I one girl in front of me off the start, she checked up a jump, so she didn't hit it. It was just a little jump, and I misgauged myself. I thought she was going to get on the gas harder and pull away. So I hit this little jump, and unfortunately, my front wheel hit her back wheel, and it caused me to hit the ground real hard. And I hurt my knee a little bit, and like my bike was kind of wrecked, like my panels were off, my bars were right crooked. And even medics were already coming down to me because it was a pretty gnarly crash. And like, I got up, I limped over to the bike, and they're like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm walking. Like, I need to get back on this bike before I get disqualified for not getting through." So I was almost a lap down, but I finished that race, and being able to do that is something that truly does make me so proud of myself, because it takes a certain kind of strength to go through something like that, and probably be a little bit traumatized from it, because let's be honest, like, crashing dirt bikes is not it's a pretty scary thing sometimes, especially as you get going on a faster level, right? The faster you go, typically the harder it's going to go. And
Mm-hmm.
last year at Sandalee, the first, or was it the second round? At the second round of East Coast, I just made a bad choice. I did take a wide gate, and after the first corner, the dirt was just so deep, and my front end just sunk right into it, and I kind of gooned out a little bit. So I just, like, I don't know what happened. I just basically flew over the bars and like landed on my head, and my feet came over, and like I scorpioned myself, hurt my back a little bit, and I went from dead last to like 12th or 11th. So that was like, even though I was hurting in that moment and it was a scary crash, and again, medics were like, "Are you good?" kind of thing. I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. Like, I got to get this going." I drove myself almost back to the top 10 from dead last. And that's just something that makes me feel happy about myself, Like, you got to be so tough to be able to, like, do something like that. And having that sense of being tough, it's kind of a neat feeling, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And it's applicable to your rest of your life because, you know, you're going to go through stuff off the track that's really hard in your life. Like, it's just life throws us curveballs and things happen. And
100%.
you've already learned that, um, you know, like you're not stopping at that, at like a failure or a mistake or beating yourself up about a mistake that you made or, you know what I mean? Just like dwelling on it, you're able to move through it
Yeah.
and deal with it. That's huge. Um, Are there any kind of rituals or routines that you would swear by before a race, or was that just like anything before? I guess your routine was showing up like right close to the start of the race. So
Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
yeah.
Other than that, yeah, I just no, I don't really have a specific routine that I swear by. If I'm able, just show up as late as possible. That's my thing. Unfortunately, with nationals, I do have to be in staging at a specific time, or technically speaking, I don't get a gate pick, so I do have to be in staging before it
Mhm.
closes. Um, which I personally didn't like because again, like I like showing up. Like if I was allowed to show up when like they were getting ready to throw up that 30-second board, that's when I was about to show up. But I wasn't allowed to do that, unfortunately. So
Mhm.
I did have to go to staging and do everything like everyone else.
Yeah. Okay, so next question, we talked about this in kind of the pre-questions. So I've interviewed, three men so far on the series,
Yeah.
and I've never asked a question like, "What's it like to be a man in motocross?" And this kind of question is often pitched at women in sports as like kind of the only angle instead of just talking to you about the racing and everything. But I do think it's important to create space because this there was a time when the sport was all guys and now it's not. And just the other day, I did like a mini motocross mom series at the track where I just interviewed, and one of the moms said, like, I love that my girls are in the sport and that you're seeing more and more girls race, and that's just great to see that. So I'd love to hear, like, what growth have you personally seen within the sport for women and girls. First of all, that's part one of the question. And second of all, what changes do you still hope to see?
I definitely do see more girls in the sport, which is realistically it's a fulfilling feeling. It's really good seeing more girls coming in. When I was a kid, I feel like there was less for sure. Being more girls from what I've noticed racing like Triple Crown, there's definitely the competition's definitely gotten harder. But no, for the women's, I just keep hoping to see it growing the way it has been because it's great seeing the girls in there, and it's a tough sport too, right? So being a girl, scientifically we aren't quite as strong. We're a little more fearful than men. Men are more willing to risk themselves in a way, and like they have that extra strength to go through with it. So being a girl and doing this kind of sport, it definitely says something about you, and it makes me proud that there's more women coming into it. It's great to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool to hear. So, what has been some of your proudest moments or accomplishments in your career so far?
I'm gonna say my most proud moment would be in the first year of COVID. I think that was 2020, or was that 2021? Either way, it was the first year of COVID at nationals. And I placed my first ever top three on the podium for women's pro, and that was a really good feeling to have. Unfortunately, there was no podiums technically that year, so I didn't get to stand up with everyone else and pop the champagne. But the fact that I did it, it was awesome. It was a great feeling to have. And that year was my first year for placing a top five. I got fifth that year. So that was definitely a fulfilling moment and made me feel very capable of what I could do.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. It sucks that you weren't able to stand on the podium, but
Yeah, it was a bit of a bummer for sure.
yeah, but still, man, you must have been so proud. Um, okay, so now you're kind of in a different season, right?
Yes,
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What the
for
decision that
sure.
you made last year and kind of where you're at.
Yeah, so realistically, the last like few years, I definitely let racing get the better of me. And like I said earlier, I can be a bit of an overthinker, and motocross is just like racing, especially, is just so hard. Um, and I know what my speed is capable of, and I was just having such a hard time like putting it out there on the actual race day. And basically, like, since I placed my first ever like top 10 for the series, like I personally started feeling like my numbers, I kept placing around the same placements every year, even though I was getting faster and faster. But again, there is more girls here, and there's young me's out there, right? There's like 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds that are a little more fearless. And I know for sure when I was that age, like there was less like think about what could happen, you were more willing to just do it, I find. So I definitely let like my placements get the better of me, and unfortunately I started not having such a great time at the races, um, racing myself. And I just kept putting myself there because I don't know, I guess like the deep inner part of me was just like, you gotta keep going. Like you gotta keep going. Doesn't matter what you're feeling like, this is what you're doing with your life right now. And last year, I had the opportunity to race the West Coast as for Triple Crown as well as the East Coast, and I said to myself, I was like, okay, like this is the final year. Like I want to. I'm gonna be 25 here soon, and I just started up a mobile business that I want to like work at, and that was the goal last year for 2025,
Mhm.
was to start this business. So last year was more or less of a big goal to myself of closure,
Mhm.
to step away from racing for 2025. And I said to myself, I was like, okay, let's get a top 10 for the West Coast and let's get a top 10 for the East Coast. And you can purely say, like, you're top 10 women's pro all of Canada. Um, and I did that. I set my goals. I it
Yeah.
was a hard year. It was a really hard year with some crashes and just some unfortunate luck, but I still pulled it, and I am very proud that I did that. And even though it was a very stressful season for me, at the end of it all, I'm really happy I did it, because now to me, it's like I'm top 10 women's pro for all of Canada. Like I have something to say about that kind of thing. And that's a cool feeling to have. So for 2025, we're stepping away from racing for sure. Now, not that I'm not going to race. You'll probably see me at the races again. But not for like a whole season, I don't think. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of
Yeah.
risk.
So keeping
And
it light, keeping it fun, and kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
in your own timing, not under the pressure of. Well, first, let me
exactly.
just before we jump ahead, I just want to say like that's amazing that you set that goal. Like those, like one goal would be is big enough, and then
Yeah,
the fact that you were like West Coast and East Coast, like I'm gonna get top 10, and then you did it. That's incredible. Like,
thank you.
yeah,
It
that's
almost didn't
incredible.
happen, but we made it work.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
truly believe racing, it comes with a lot of luck too, right? It doesn't necessarily, being a good rider, a consistent rider, and a fast rider definitely helps out, but luck also plays in favors too, and your decision making. Like I said, like at the one race last year at West, like I misjudged this girl going over this one jump, and I still hit the jump and I hit her. And then it cost me that race. Almost, right? I didn't place well at all in that race. And
mhm.
they did it a little differently too, that specific day. It was just one moto. It was a bit longer of a moto, and it was for double points. So if it was like our normal races where we have two motos and it was for normal points, then I could have had a second chance in the second race to recover myself. But unfortunately, I didn't, because I picked the wrong day to crash.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure you look back at races and you're like, if this had happened and that happened, if this had happened, then
Oh
this
yeah,
would, like I mean, it's funny.
definitely.
Sometimes I hear my kids say oh, like if I had done this, I would have won. I'm like, you can't really say that because you don't know that, like, but you do know that. Yeah, it's like it's interesting. It's interesting looking back. It's hindsight's 2020, right? Like it's easy to see, but that's cool. So you've been doing some training. You've been trying to do some girls' days, right? That's on your kind of goal for this year. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I've been trying to do girls' school for the last, this is going on my 3 years now.
Mhm.
I have two in July and one in August, and basically the goal for it is just to get out as many girls as possible. It's a really fun day. Just teaching girls how to ride. I don't know. I love teaching, and I really love teaching girls because obviously I'm a girl, so I want to give my knowledge off to some girls and see their potential and encourage them to maybe even do what I did, you know. Yeah, it was hard for me, but at the same time, like, do I regret it? Absolutely not. You know, like Sam Gaynor says, you know, like this stuff builds you character, and I'm gonna say, like, yeah, I put myself through a little bit of hell, but I'm a tough person because of it. If it wasn't for me pushing myself on these limits and putting myself in those positions, I wouldn't be the strong person that I am today, and able to be tough about things and, like, you know, oh, sure, I might hurt myself, but like, am I gonna whine and cry about it? No, I'm not, because like I know how to deal with that now. And motocross has given me that, and I'm so thankful for that tough skin that it has given me. And if I can like help other girls pursue that, I would absolutely be all over it, because I love watching men and women, but I really like watching the girls like push their boundaries, push their fears. And because I've been there, I've been done that. You know, there's a jump that you're like so scared to hit, and then eventually you hit it. And it's just like, it's a very powerful feeling that you get. And like, I can really relate that with them.
Mhm.
And with the girls' school, it's just, it it's a heartwarming feeling, I guess you could say, when you get a good group of girls out and they're all in it, just like you were, and they're all open to learning, and you're giving off your knowledge to them, and it's a
Yeah,
lot of fun. I love it.
that's so cool in the community of it too. So can you kind of walk us through like what's the layout of the girls' school, like a girls' school day? What would that look like? So it's at Burn River
Yeah.
track, yeah. And is it like come together and then go on the track, do some training, and then are there like lunches or what's kind of like the layout for it that you've done so far?
It's basically like they show up. I usually have a second teacher for the small track if there is any little girls riding out there. Um, but yeah, so we basically show up. I'll go over a little bit of like basic bike work techniques, how to check your chains, how to like check for like wear and tear kind of thing, and like if they're ever out to buying a bike on their own, like I'll go over like this is what you should look for. So I try and give them like a little bit of knowledge of like what to look for if you own a bike or if you're looking to buy a used bike. And then yeah, we just go out to the track and we do a lot of section work, go over just some basic stuff depending on the girl too, right? Some girls will need little bit higher advanced. Some just need some basic work. So we'll go over like body positioning, braking control. If they're ready, I'll go over some jumping with them. I hope to get some bumps out on the track, so I'll ask my dad to like leave it rough so then I can really like watch them go over some rough stuff, leave some ruts in the track so I can like teach them how to do that. And then yeah, we all just kind of like hang out for the day and like do a bunch of riding. That's about it.
That's very good. Almost makes me want to get on a bike, but
Maybe
not.
should come out.
You know what? I have ridden a bike once when I started dating my husband. You know when you start dating someone you want them to like you, so you're like, yeah, I'm gonna totally do this thing that's so not like something that I would ever do. So I like got on his race bike. He sat behind me, and then we like drove. I rode it through a field, but then I stalled. I was like, there's a lot of power to this thing. I think it was a Honda Sierra. I think it was a 450 maybe. I don't know. It
Okay.
was. I'm probably saying it wrong. He's had a couple bikes now. So, but honestly, like I get such a rush from watching racers. And like when I started dating Jay and he was racing at OCMC and I went out to watch him, I had such like minimal knowledge of race, like the race world. But I did try flagging and being out on the track. It's like, wow, this is so cool. Like it was so much fun to watch and be part of that. Slightly terrifying, but also just really fun. And so now that I'm not like on the track, but I love to watch and like watch people race. It's so much fun
It
to see
is.
people pursue their passion and their love for it, and just like I'm continually inspired by racers like yourself, by my own kids, you know, and by my husband when I see him race, like just that mental toughness that
Yeah.
is such a huge part of the sport. I feel like I learn all the time from them and from racers that I'm watching, like, okay, you can get through things, you know, in your life. You just so yeah. But so thanks. Yeah, this is kind of these are all the questions that I had, and I don't think anyone popped any questions in. So I don't have any more to add, but Brooke, thanks so much for joining me for this. This was
Thank you for having me.
a lot of fun.
It
Yeah,
was.
this is really cool.